No, I don't know that I care too much about doing a nasty intro because I don't imagine anybody's going to be watching at the very, very beginning. But essentially, what we're going to be doing is we are live now, by the way.
Yes, indeed we
Just
are.
welcoming you, Adam. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent.
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I am stressed right out because this is my first time doing this, and there's just a
Yeah.
whole lot going on, and some of it's going well, and some of it is not. So, if by any chance there's anybody going to be joining us this evening, let us know what our sound sounds like. I'd be very curious how we sound, if we sound okay, or if this is too quiet, too loud, can't hear the music is overpowering. Anything you got, I'd love to hear it. I'm just going to send this link out to a friend who said he'd be joining to check that exact thing.
Cool.
But one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, that's just the music that freaked me out a little bit. What have you been up to recently? What have you been enjoying? What kind of TV shows, movies, video games have you been playing? What's been keeping you occupied? Obviously, we both saw Spider-Man. We'll get to that later. But other than that,
we did. So it's been a pretty full time for me lately. I have been playing a lot of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and I just recently beat that a couple days ago. And let me tell you, that was a hell of a game.
Did you beat the first one?
I did a couple times actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah. This one though was like, it's one of the biggest increases in quality for a sequel that I've ever seen in my life. Like, they took everything that was good from the first one and cranked it up. There's more stuff. The combat's better. There's better like combat stances now. The story's better.
Now, I never got into the first one. I never even tried the first one. I kept thinking about it. I heard it was a really good story, but I heard it was also really easy to get completely lost in the world and have no idea what you were doing.
Yes.
And I think I watched it play for like a minute, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, I could see how this could be very disorienting.
It really is, and that is the first one's biggest detriment. Like, even I've played it a couple times. I've beat it at least twice, and I've played it probably couple more, like started a file and never finished, but every single time I still get lost and I'll still get turned around. The map is one of those horrible 3D Metroid maps, where you never quite know where you're going. The second one still has that to a degree, but I've never quite it never quite felt as bad as the first one. The actual level design is a bit more obvious, where you're supposed, like, it's a bit more obvious the paths you're supposed to take, without feeling like there's just bright white lines or bright yellow lines that you're supposed to be following. But I don't know.
Sometimes
I feel
like
nice,
sometimes I really like those bright white lines, like "Go here, you moron."
Sometimes I like it when they sort of find a way to throw that in there, but still have the immersion there. Like in this, it's always like the same pattern of wall that you can wall run across, or the same like type of vines or little rock crags that you can climb up. So
I played Horizon Zero Dawn maybe like a year ago.
Yeah,
and I really liked the way that they had that with the colored walls that you can, like, you know exactly where you can climb, and it doesn't spell it out for you, but you you train your brain to look for those things. So you're like, oh, I know what I'm supposed to be doing here.
It's the sort of visual like grammar of the game that you start to learn.
Absolutely.
I have also been playing the new Star Trek Resurgence game. That had me very, like, I've been low key. Might be one of my most anticipated games. The first Star Trek game in at least a decade, and it's a Telltale game, which are some of my favorite types of games. And I mean, really fits Star Trek.
All right, just vamp for like 30 seconds. I just realized I hadn't put like a title or anything in here.
Oh, just a blank, untitled live video. Yeah. Great. So I've been playing the Star Trek Resurgence Telltale game, and it has been a very effective, like, Telltale style choice-based interactive game. It's really surprised me, actually, and it's like perfectly captured the Star Trek universe. you're having weird conversations with your crew, teching your way out of situations. You need to divert all power to shields in order to do this, but oh no, if you do that, it'll reverse the polarity, and then it'll kick the guys off the hull who are doing repairs, and just like, it really understands the universe that it's in, and it's taking full advantage of it to a narrative degree too, which is really nice to see.
Nice.
And honestly, I'm just happy for more Telltale games, because not only is Telltale themselves back, they have an Expanse Telltale game coming out in July. This Star Trek game is made
Expanse,
by...
like the TV show on Amazon?
Yes, the TV show and best-selling book series.
I'll admit, I didn't get too far into the TV show. I thought it was good. I enjoyed the 4 episodes that I saw, but it was just one of those, I have so much time in the day, and this just didn't quite make the cut.
And that is fair. It is one that takes a little bit to get going. But when it does, it has some really, really good, some great sci-fi that I've never seen before.
Okay.
Like a very realistic...
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, that's the show that, I think it got canceled by Fox or whatever it was on, and then, Bezos was like, I really like this, and bought it for Amazon basically just so he could make it for himself. I was like, that's the kind of money I'd like to have in this world, where I'm just no, that show is not canceled. I'm gonna keep watching it.
You can't tell me. I can't tell you how happy I was as a fan, too, that Bezos had that money, because that really sucked when that got canceled.
Yeah. I would absolutely buy Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency and just be like, infinite episodes. Just keep going. I am totally on board with this.
That can be a 24-season show easily.
And I'd watch all of it. If it kept the quality, season 2 was admittedly not quite as good as season 1.
Yeah, I never finished, actually, season 2.
Oh, but season 1 was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I love that show. I mean, now we're going back years, but either way. This was Diablo 4 pre-release weekend. So if you bought a certain type of the starter set, you could actually, not the starter, you know what I mean. If you bought an upgraded bundle, you could start on Friday. As it so happened, my wife was out of town all weekend. My kids were away at their grandparents' house. I had 4 days off, just the way my schedule happened to work out. And it was I'm going to play so much Diablo. And I played barely any.
Oh, I was going to ask you how it was.
Oh, I did get to play quite a bit. When I say barely any, I'm level 30 or something. It's not I didn't touch it. It's just in my brain. It was that it's going to be in 1999, and I'm going to play this for all weekend long. And it's no, even when the family's not home, I still have responsibilities. It's just not quite what I was anticipating, but that's totally fine.
That's fair.
Really fun game so far. I did play the beta a couple of months ago, so most of what I'm doing right now is stuff that I've already done, but it was still pretty fun to go through. The Necromancer was not an option back then, and that was always my favorite character back in the day. Have you played Diablo at all? Do you know what I'm talking about?
So I've played Diablo 2, never played Diablo 3, never played Diablo 1, but I have a lot of fond childhood memories playing Diablo 2 with friends. And,
nice. We were supposed to be getting together with a couple of friends and doing a LAN party this weekend, the official launch weekend.
Okay.
And then I screwed that up by messing up my schedule. I thought we were getting together on Friday for some reason. Apparently it was supposed to be the Saturday. That's my sister's birthday with a bunch of other stuff going on. It's I can't deke out on family as much as I want to.
Yeah, to play Diablo. That's
right. I don't think that would get very far with my family. My family especially is incredibly religious, so that would really not be okay.
No,
I'm gonna skip this family event to go hang out with Diablo if that's all right with you guys.
Yeah, no, the devil's got Dan.
Well, Diablo, the devil has better graphics. What do you want from me? So that was part of my weekend. We did. I don't know. I can't sink my teeth into a video game at the moment. You know what I mean? I was playing Gotham Knights, and I kind of got away from that. I was playing God of War, Ragnarok, and I just kept getting sidetracked. I've played all the God of War games. I've liked all the God of War games, but that one specifically just, I don't know. It just, there's such long periods where you're not doing anything. You're just kind of following somebody around while they're talking, or you're listening to story and stuff like that. And it's not that the story's bad. It's just when I want to sit down for half an hour to play a game, I want to play a game for half an hour. You know what I mean? I don't want to watch a cutscene for 25 of that half an hour, of that 30 minutes.
Which, that's fair. That might be a bad game to get those half-hour chunks in. Because I know when I played it with my brother, and we spent the whole weekend and beat it within like 2 weekends, basically.
Which is kind of how that game feels like it should be played. Like it should be played in like an 8-hour increment.
And the pace of that, I gotta tell you, I didn't feel the way that you did at all because of that. I think like I love that game and I love that story, but I can see why that, like, yeah, if you only have 30 minutes, it's not one of those types of games. I don't think.
No, I do really like aspects of it. Like I like the fact that you're playing as Atreyu a lot more. And Atreus, sorry. A lot more. I am kind of guessing where the story is going, but I don't want any spoilers because I'll get there eventually. I've really enjoyed these games, but it's kind of like they're kind of laying some groundwork, I think. So I will get back to it, but it's just really been tough. And then Midnight Suns is the most recent one. As I was telling you, like I kind of accidentally bought Midnight Suns by like looking at it, putting it in my cart, forgetting about it, and then buying a different game, forgetting that it was still in my cart. So I bought 2 games at once. But now that I've got it, I actually really enjoy it. I really like the combat in it. The story is pretty good. It's got a little bit of there's a shoot, I totally forgot. There's a game for the Nintendo Switch. It's been Nintendo forever. It's like a tactical game.
Yeah, Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem.
Yeah, it's Marvel Fire Emblem 100%.
Right? Like the Fire Emblem game came out like 3 years ago, where you run around a castle and you have to talk to people and you fight for like a minute, and then you run around the castle for 20 minutes and you fight for like a minute.
Yep. It's like a relationship building game mixed with a tactical sort of action game.
And that's exactly what this game feels like. It feels like you're fighting, and the fighting is a lot of fun, but it just doesn't last very long, and then you're running around a castle forever. And it's just like, okay, I really do like this and I want to get back to it, but between making videos, going to work, living with a family, playing other games, it's just like, it's really hard to find time to do any of sink my teeth into the things that I really want to sink my teeth into.
Yeah, that's fair. The drum of life keeps on pounding, eh?
Absolutely. And then as far as like TV shows, have you seen anything movie, TV wise, anything interesting other than Spider-Man, obviously?
Oh, what have I been watching? So I finally got around to watching Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. And
what did you think of that one?
So I really liked it, but I didn't quite love it. I don't know. I still need to like sit on it and digest how I feel. I might need to see it a couple more times, but like I really like the twist about it. Like, I don't know if it's been long enough for spoilers, but
it absolutely has.
Okay, so the fact that summer. Okay, so yeah, I guess if anybody hasn't seen it, then that's on you. Yeah. But the fact that the UFO is a creature, it's a weird space predator. Like, that was such a cool twist, and the way that Jordan filmed some of those scenes where it's stalking them like a giant creature was like just some of the most tense like sci-fi horror filmmaking I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
But then there's just something that, like, I don't know, it just didn't all come together for me in a perfect way, but
no, I would agree with that. It's probably my least favorite of his 3 movies.
Yeah.
And I think I want to try it again because I want to see the scene in the barn is kind of what I thought the movie was going to be. You know what the scene I'm talking about? I mean, I guess I just said we could do spoilers. The scene with the 3 kids dressed like aliens.
Yes.
That's what I thought the movie was going to be. And I was like, this is getting really creepy.
Yeah.
And then that was
it was a red herring.
Red herring, thank you.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of left with this like, oh, okay. And then the rest of the movie, I liked the concepts of it. I didn't necessarily love the executions of it. You know what I mean? Like, I really like the idea that you did of the UFO being a living creature as opposed to being a spaceship. That was a really cool concept. Did I like the actual execution of it? It was okay.
Yeah, like I would say it felt a little weird and small scale to have the main crux of the movie be just about catching it on tape, which I kind of get what they're going for, but it doesn't. Something like this is a bit bigger than that. You know what I mean? Like, this is, we have a giant creature stalking humans, and it kills like 30 to 40 of them. Like, that is larger stakes than just taking a picture of it. Like, maybe that's a first act or second act thing.
Yeah.
But
and just out of curiosity, because I have not figured this out, I looked up things online and I tried. What the heck was with the shoe? The levitating shoe after the monkey goes crazy. Like,
yeah, you know what? I meant to I meant to look that up because I had no idea myself. I mean, I feel like it has to have something to do with maybe that was like a first alien attack, and it was like,
well, that's
or like an early scouting party, and that's what made the chimp go crazy. And the levitating shoe is some representation. Yeah. Maybe there was a UFO creature above the studio.
From what I remember people saying was it was kind of like spectacle for the sake of spectacle. Like, you're supposed to not really understand what it is, and that's why it like drew the kids' attention to it.
I see.
But it's like it's not like it was weird. It was like it was impossible. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that shoe was dangling like that naturally. And it was one of those, like, Jordan Peele is way too smart of a director to do something like that and have it not mean something.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
But I'm too dumb of a consumer to know what the heck he's talking about with it. So, like, all right.
Exactly. Yeah, I have no idea what that meant. Although like I said, I feel like it has to in some way tie together to the alien. Otherwise, that entire scene and sequence of events with the chimp and Stephen Yeun's backstory, like, otherwise that's kind of wasted time. And it's just like allegory for a predator, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's what my wife would have considered the entire movie was just a waste of time. She was not a fan at all.
She didn't like it?
No. We went and saw it together, and it was like, maybe. And she's like, no. I'm like, fair enough.
Yeah.
I can't argue that your opinion. So,
and I could understand it.
Yeah. I just watched with my kids Chaos Walking, which is a Netflix movie with Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley.
I know of that. It was stuck in development hell for a long time, and was deemed unreleasable, I believe, by Sony for a while. How was it? How did it turn out?
You know what? I didn't hate it. Like, it's not great. Like, I'm not like, this is not a thumbs up recommendation, but it's something to watch with my kids. Like, we laughed, we enjoyed it. Like, there's some funny moments. The whole concept of the movie is humanity travels to another planet, and for whatever reason, when you get to this planet, male thoughts are loud. Like, you can actually see and hear them, and some people actually weaponize them. Like, he at one point is like thinking about a snake so loudly that it makes a snake appear and it scares somebody off their horse.
Oh, that's like kind of a cool idea. It's like almost
like,
there.
Like, you got the sci-fi elements, you got traveling to another planet, you've got like these cool concepts, and like there's a very religious cult that's like, oh well, we can't see what women are thinking, so we're going to assume that women are thinking the absolute worst, and they go out and like murder most of them.
Nice.
So when Daisy Ridley's ship lands, because she's part of the second wave, because humanity's leaving, leaving Earth to come here, they find another woman, and Tom Holland's trying to protect her, and they're trying to kill her, and it's fine. Like, there's nothing inherently awful about it. It just it's kind of like Nope. Like, it introduces these cool ideas, and I want them to see them go further, and they just they keep it to an hour and a half. Like, it's pretty short, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But like, it's one of those movies like, oh, I almost wish there was like an extra 10-15 minutes of just world building. Like, explain this place to me a little bit better.
Yeah, something that high concept kind of needs a little bit of time, like strictly devoted to setting up that, in a good, like, you got to make that feel real.
Yeah.
I feel like both Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley need better agents, because they seem stuck with these middling sort of like projects outside of their big roles. And I love them both as actors, and I know that they're capable of so much more.
I was gonna say, like, you say they need better. I am awful with language right now. You say they need better representation, but like, they're both in billion-dollar franchises. Like, I think they're doing just fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
Like, but, Ray toys are still selling, and she's getting a little bit of profit off that, I'm sure.
I mean, you're not wrong, but it just, for such good talent, like especially Daisy Ridley, she's only done the Murder on the Orient Express and Chaos Walking, as far as I know, outside of Star Wars, and both were kind of middling.
Yeah,
which is just unfortunate.
Was in one a while ago called The Devil.
Oh, The Devil All the Time or something like that. I was just talking about that with my brother.
And like, I didn't like that movie that much, but he was phenomenal in it. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those ones where like, it's fine. I'm glad I watched it, but he was really good. Oh, so like, it's not that he's bad, but maybe you're right. Maybe he's just not getting quite the right roles.
That's what I mean, or he's not saying no or something, like, to sloppy movies, because that was a very sloppy movie. Although I ultimately kind of liked it. It was there was some strong enough characters. I liked Robert Pattinson's weird preacher, and Tom Holland was good.
Yeah.
In that. Did you ever see Cherry with Tom Holland?
Never heard of Cherry.
So it was an Apple movie.
That's why I never heard of it.
Probably why, exactly. But it was really good. So he's an Iraq war veteran based on a true story who comes back and he's self-medicating with like heroin and stuff to cope with his PTSD. Okay. And he winds up losing himself and he winds up becoming a bank robber. And it's sort of following this dude's descent into madness, kind of like just through the tragedy of addiction. You know, he had no clear goals in life, so he winds up serving in the military, and then he's hopelessly scarred for it afterwards, and he's just sort of picking up the pieces of it. But it was a really good character piece with him. Definitely check it out if you get the chance.
Apple is like the only streaming service, well, the only big streaming service we don't have. That being said, we watched like 2 or 3 episodes of Ted Lasso, and like I would be totally down to buy Apple for at least a month and just keep going through Ted Lasso. So like if we end up doing that, then maybe I'll check Cherry out.
Yeah, my mom just finished Ted Lasso. She said that it was supposed to be fantastic. Didn't look like my cup of tea, but I hear such great things about it.
I've heard amazing things for so long, and I was kept like, I don't know. And then I watched the first couple episodes, and I'm like, yeah. This isn't something that would have necessarily appealed to me on paper, but like he's got a certain charm to him. It's pretty fun to watch. It's an easy watch too.
Well, that's good then.
Yeah.
I might check it out at one point in my life.
Did you see either Dungeons and Dragons or Super Mario?
I, in fact, saw both.
Fantastic. What about Guardians 4?
Have not seen Guardians yet.
Okay,
Guardians 3, technically.
You're right, it is Guardians 3.
If we're not counting the Christmas special.
Christmas, I don't want to count that for anything. I am very okay leaving that one on the table.
That's fine.
Okay, so we'll leave Guardians on the table for now. But Super Mario, what did you think of that one?
I really liked it. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a deep Nintendo fan. I was more of a, like, the PlayStation 1 was the first console that I really started playing, so I don't have, like, deep childhood attachment to Mario and Mario Kart outside of just playing casually with friends, but I really liked how they delved into the world and sort of made it accessible.
Yeah.
And it was just fun to watch.
As a person who is an old school Mario fan, like, there were so many Easter eggs, and I found they did a really good job of not, like, hitting you in the face with them. They were just really subtle in the background kind of things. Like his cell phone was like the GameCube loading up, right?
Oh, that's fun. See, I didn't even notice stuff like that.
Exactly. And that's just it. Like they weren't like, this is an Easter egg. It was just like, sort of like, yeah, you'll get it or you won't. And I'm sure there's a ton I missed too, to be perfectly honest. Like there were so many, not quite as much as Spiderverse, like that was pretty insane. But there were so many things like that. Even one, I saw like a screenshot and I didn't catch it live watching the movie. But when he's like trying to get to when they're being plumbers and they're trying to get to their first job site, he's running along and it's a side scroller. And the first little bit where he's running through the construction site is the first couple of screens of Super Mario 1, where like you have that Goomba and the top. I'm like, that's so cool. But that is like, that's not even blinking you miss it. That's like, if you don't pause it at the right second, you're going to miss it. But like, good on you for doing that. Like, that's really cool that you were able to bring in so many things like that and not pat yourself on the back because you're doing it. You're just kind of like allowing the world to breathe and showing us these fun things, because there was a lot of cool things to it. Ultimately I didn't love it. Like, it's one of those movies where like, I'm really glad I saw it. My kids really enjoyed it. Am I gonna revisit it? Am I gonna go back to it? I don't know.
Yeah,
you know, like
I feel like I'll probably watch it a couple more times, just because it was such an easy watch. And in terms of like those types of like I liked it better than the Sonic movie, if we're talking about like, if we're comparing like mascot video game movies. Definitely did not like it as much as The Last of Us if we're just comparing it to all video game adaptations.
Well, that's a really tough sell. You got a lot of time to live in that world, and that's definitely a topic I want to touch on in another episode. There's a couple of Last of Us things. I keep bugging Jesse, who's another person who's supposed to be joining us on the stream at some point, to finish watching that show, because you and I have both played both of the games. He hasn't played any of the games. He's watching the show for the first time. I would love to get his take on it. And you touched on something months ago that, again, I don't want to get into right now, but where you think, well, never mind. We'll get into that another time. But spoiler. Dungeons and Dragons. I see that it's out on Blu-ray now, and I was looking at it. I'm like, I really enjoyed it, but I don't know that I'm gonna revisit it often enough to warrant a purchase.
See, that's one where I want to do a little bit of research, because if there's like a 2-disc collector's edition Blu-ray with a ton of special features, I'm buying that in a heartbeat, because the level of practical effects in that movie was something I have not seen in like a decade, and I really missed it. I didn't realize how much I missed it until I watched that movie, but like just something as simple as just seeing good production design. Like I'm like, I didn't realize how sick of just sloppy CGI backgrounds I really enjoyed seeing actual castles built, nice sets with cool art engraved into them.
They're actually walking through a world, not just a green screen.
It felt like, this would be the obvious comparison, but it felt as lived in as something like Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings. Like, you could tell that these places had a history, and they actually went through the effort of building these giant sets. And the animatronics too, with the bird guy, with Jonathan, and the various like dragonborn people and the orcs, and just all that stuff was so cool.
And like, you're absolutely right. Like, with the level of actual, not just CGI, but
and the CGI that was there was used very effectively too. It was used for very like inventive gags. There was some cool stuff, cool use of magic.
But it was nice to build on the practical effects.
Yes.
Right? So you have the practical effects doing most of the heavy lifting, and then the CG is just kind of like making it prettier, which is like what the best movies do. Because if you look at something like Jurassic Park, which was also heavily practical effect because it had to be, it still looks good today. And then if you watch something like Jurassic World, which is heavily CG, or like Quantum Mania, which is like 3 months old, it looks awful because it's all CG, and CG looks bad really quickly if it's not done very, very well.
Especially when it's not projected on a 50-foot screen. Like, I feel like the seams on Quantum Mania are going to really show watching it at home. I haven't rewatched it, but
they show even in the theaters. Like, there's a
they did
where you get like Michael Douglas, and he's just kind of looking around like, "What am I doing?" And it's like, "Yeah, I get it." Like, you don't really see what's happening.
I mean, the man's got bills to pay. He's sometimes work is work for actors too.
Are you able to see the chat? I'm sorry, we're using a new program, so I don't know exactly what.
I am, yes.
Okay. So Adam says, definitely one of the most fun parts of Mario was catching all the Easter eggs. A little 100%. Bit, yeah, absolutely. And I know Adam from way back, like, he's another friend who's been playing since like NES days, Super Nintendo days. So like, there's a lot in there for you if you have been around for a while, if you have been playing those games. Even things like Paper Mario and stuff like that were well represented. Like, it was a lot of fun. But back to Dungeons and Dragons for a second, I thought it was amazing how good it was just to have something competent on screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just an actual decent plot, funny jokes, letting emotional moments hit, practical effects, CG, but like sparingly.
Yeah.
It all came together really well to make this really satisfying thing. And yet I still don't know that I'm going to be like revisiting it all that often.
See, I mean, that's fair. Like, not trying to change your mind on it, but like,
no,
for me, it's definitely one that like I could see myself checking out every, I don't know, couple of years. That's one I could see myself rewatching, especially like, I hope that they wind up making at least a sequel, if not a trilogy.
Sadly, I think it didn't do very well.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was very well received critically. Like, I think a lot of people enjoyed it. The people who saw it really liked it, but not enough people went to see it.
I feel like it was
like the week before Mario and 2 weeks before Guardians or something like that. Like, it just had an absolute awful run to try and go against.
It was still in the wake of John Wick too, I think. I'm trying to remember the timeline. It was not a very good place in the timeline for it to be released, you know?
I mean, you're not going to have very many good times during this summer. Like,
that's true.
For us, it's fantastic. Like, it is blockbuster after blockbuster after blockbuster this summer.
But in terms of making money,
yeah, for the studios, it's going to be rough if you're not making something something big like a Fast and the Furious or a Marvel movie, it's going to be slim pickings, I think, this summer because there is so many things to be watching. And Mad Dingo.
Oh, that's right. The OGL open game license fiasco. Forgot about that.
I don't play Dungeons and Dragons. Like we do play like tabletop RPGs, but I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. But yes, there was some very poor decisions made by Wizards of the Coast regarding that game, and I'm sure that soured a lot of people, unfortunately, right before the movie came out. So that was some good timing.
That's a shame because it felt like a very respectful I hesitate to say adaptation, but movie set within the world. I don't know all the deep lore, but I knew enough to be happy with it. So it's a shame that they like did that so close to the release.
Like I was, like you said, like I was aware of like the classes, the races. I knew what an owl bear was, but like, and like I've heard some of the titles, like they would have Neverwinter, or they at least referenced Neverwinter. Like there's a board game based on
Baldur's Gate.
Right? Baldur's Gate. There was a video game back in the day, so like I have knowledge of it just from having general pop culture knowledge. But like I've never sat down and read a book. We've never had a session or anything like that. So like, yeah, very tertiary knowledge. Yeah.
Have you seen the new Evil Dead movie, Evil Dead Rise?
I have not. I am mildly. It's not Sam Raimi, is that correct?
So he's like producing, and he's been talking in all the press junkets and stuff. But from watching it, I don't know how hands-on he was. I didn't like it. Sorry, just looking at the chat here.
No, that's totally fair. Sam Raimi, Evil Dead is a Sam Raimi thing. The first three, at least. I have found more and more I'm not a Sam Raimi fan. I don't really like anything that I can think of that he's done.
Okay.
So when that came out, it was a hard pass. It's kind of, maybe that's unfortunate because maybe if it isn't really a Sam Raimi thing, then I'm kind of lumping it in incorrectly, kind of like most people do now with the Transformers movies with Michael Bay. But he soured the franchise enough for me that it doesn't appeal. I don't even know if I watched the trailer, to be perfectly honest.
So what really made me disappointed was that it wasn't Raimi, but it felt like they were trying to, like there were some very on the nose references to Evil Dead 2, some of the same lines and like same moments that they were trying to repackage that just weren't executed as well. And it was very nonsensical, very unlikable characters. Like in most Evil Dead movies, like when reading the book, it's relatively easy. They sort of slip into it. It's in the basement and they wind up going through it and they wind up reading it, or they press play on a thing. In this, there's an earthquake that opens up a parking garage that this kid like spelunks into, and then he like comes into this very creepy chamber that's clearly got like crosses everywhere and like do not disturb stuff written, and he goes through that into another room, and then he finds the book that's like wrapped in a bunch of like hardcore tape that he winds up taking, and then he takes these records home and they help him out of the thing. So it's like this big ordeal where he goes out of his way to grab the book, which just makes when he reads it like you don't have as much sympathy for him. And it didn't go as hard. It wasn't as outrageous. Like Evil Dead is known for these outrageous kills and camp. It didn't really have camp, and it didn't really have outrageous kills.
That's unfortunate. So it was be missing the two things the franchise is known for. Yeah,
it was pretty unfortunate because I was a big fan of the last one, the Evil Dead 2013 movie, like the reboot that they did. That one was without Raimi as well, and then that one was they played it completely straight, so they did not do any like major references to the other movies besides like a post credits cameo from Bruce Campbell that makes no sense. But it committed to what it wanted to do. It wanted to be full horror, full grotesquerie with no camp. And it did that very well with some very grotesque practical effects, some very squirmish moments. But The second one just kind of, or like this new one is not a second one, but it really pulled its punches in a lot of ways that really disappointed me.
I mean, I want to say that's too bad, but realistically, you just saved me $10 and 2 hours of my life. So I appreciate it.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Learn from my mistakes. Don't waste your time.
Oh, I'll learn from as many of your mistakes as I can in that regard. Like, just you keep making them, and I'll just keep avoiding them.
It was funny too because I wound up. So I watched that movie, and then I watched Mario right after.
Okay.
And yeah, because those were just 2 new movies that were out that I had access to. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to check them out. And I expected to like Evil Dead a lot more. I was very excited for it too, which was a shame. It had a really good trailer that, of course, spoiled all the good moments. So yeah, I wound up having an opposite sort of thing than my expectations. I liked Mario a lot better than I thought I would, and I disliked Evil Dead a lot more than I thought I would.
To be honest, that's kind of nice when that happens, though. I mean, it's unfortunate for Evil Dead, but like when you find something you really enjoyed and you're like, oh, I wasn't anticipating liking that, but that really
everything balanced, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's hard to find things where like you have high expectations for them and then they actually hit and they're like, oh, that actually managed to hit my expectations. Which, I mean, Spiderverse absolutely did. Like, it was one of those ones where I went, this was my most anticipated movie of the summer.
Easily.
And I walked out with the biggest grin on my face. We laughed. I mean, not the whole time. There's some pretty serious moments in there, but we laughed a good chunk of the movie, and I was on a high afterwards. Like, it hit all the right notes, I would say. Like, that was, definitely one of the few movies that actually did live up to such lofty expectations. Do we want to get into it?
Sure.
We're 36 minutes into this. Might as well start talking about it at some point.
Might as well.
I do want to take one quick second and say thank you, Grandma's Dirty Socks. Congratulations on the new show, he says. That is actually a clan member from Marvel Strike Force of mine.
Okay.
I just need to take a quarter of a second and say clan's name is Get Lost Squidward, which I thought was a SpongeBob reference, and I was like, okay. Turns out it's actually from Endgame, which of course Iron Man says to not Ebony Maw.
Ebony Maw. Yeah,
it is Ebony.
It was Ebony, yeah.
Which is, I'll admit, cooler.
That's better.
So I apologize to all my squiddies out there. Had to get it out at some point. Might as well do it live. All right. As far as the Spider-Man main topic, I do want to hopefully I guess we should go ahead and throw a spoiler up there.
Oh, yes.
I made the crappy graphic. Might as well use it.
Y'all are be warned.
Don't know if you could hear that. My kid's yelling in the background.
Oh, yeah. I heard something.
Okay. I am hoping to take this section specifically, cut it out, and make this its own separate thing. I'll worry about the intro and outro in post, but that's kind of, in theory, what I'd like to make from this. But as far as Across the Spider-Man, Across the Spiderverse goes, we saw it together Thursday, opening night. Absolutely no spoilers because nobody's got to see it before we did. I walked into this, as I said, with the highest of expectations. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Not just superhero movies, actual movies. I find it infinitely rewatchable. I just 100%. Watched it again after Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh, you did? So you got to?
I got to. And nice. It still held up. Even after seeing Across Spider-Verse, it was so good. There was a couple things I noticed watching it afterwards that I had not picked up on, and you just watched it right before, so I'm curious if you noticed them. You didn't mention them.
I'm curious what you saw.
They're pretty subtle, but we'll get to it. But I was so hyped for this movie, and it exceeded every single one of my expectations. Like, I could not have had a better time watching it with you, watching it with Jay, seeing it in a crowded theater. There were some women behind us who were like getting right into it and making comments.
Oh yeah.
And it was so good. I don't usually like to talk in theaters, but I leaned over to you at one point and was like, I can't wait to own this so I can just go through and pause it. Like, it was
100%.
Dings of some kind. I need to choke everything down.
Nope.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, it was made for Blu-ray purchase for sure. For that, that's a frame by frame movie.
Absolutely, it was made for us. Like, it's animation, so some people will say that it is a kids movie. I don't agree with that statement. No. I think kids will enjoy it. I think my kids will enjoy it. but this was made for us. There's so much stuff in there that people of our generation, our age, I realize you're younger than me, will get and will enjoy that most people just won't. And if you're a Spider-Man fan, you'll get even more. That said, if you are not a Spider-Man fan, but you did enjoy the first one, you will like this one. I'm convinced. Like, if you liked the first one, you will like this one.
I would have
you
to
will
imagine.
miss some things, but there's such, like...
It's where it takes the characters from the first one, strictly just, like, in terms of executing and unfolding the plot line set up in the first one. Like, it nails that on such a fantastic level. So, like, its foundation is so good, and then all the other stuff, all the fan stuff, all the Easter eggs and everything they pile on top, that's just like, that's just extra. That's extra filling for us, you know?
And for the record, that's what I mean when I say you will miss some stuff. I mean Easter eggs. I do not mean main plot. You will not be confused or lost watching this movie. It all makes perfect sense. I just mean there's some Easter eggy things in the background where you're like, what is that happening right now? Why is this guy so sad? That's just Ben Reilly. Actually, that's Kane, but whatever. They called him Ben Reilly in this.
Oh god, the clone saga. I was trying to like figure out. I think you are right. I think that was Kane pretending to be Ben Reilly, pretending to be Peter Parker.
Just the way that Ben Reilly acts in this movie is more how Kane acted back in the day, like, oh, my wife, and he's sad all the time. I don't remember Ben Reilly being sad all the time, but it was...
He has his
having fun with the role.
Especially in recent times, Ben Reilly has just been sad boy Spider-Man. Yeah. Poor guy. At least he has this rippling musculature.
I thought the art in this movie, like the art in the first movie was phenomenal, and this one got to take it up a notch by showing us more diverse universes. Not quite as much as I would have liked to have, but like even from the very beginning, the opening scene, you meet a Da Vinci level Vulture. Like he's a paper character. They actually mentioned like, you're made of paper, don't play with fire. And it was such a ridiculous merging of like Gwen Stacy's like water paint universe with this hand-drawn paper, like
Vitruvian Man, like
it was such a cool thing, and it never felt weird or out of place. Like it worked so well, and I think that I just wish we could have seen more. Like I would have loved to have seen what Vulture's world looks like what the Da Vinci universe is like, you know.
But even just that little taste, I thought was so good. I love the fact that there was like little equations that would pop up as he's like throwing his weapons to like calculate the force. Just like the level of detail, I totally agree. It was something that I've never seen before in a movie. Like the art was just completely next level. Like Gwen Stacy's world was just, I was just like lost every time we were there, you know. All the colors and just like
I've never read a Gwen Stacy comic book or a Spider-Gwen comic book, but from my understanding, that is how her run looks. Like it is very watercolor, like that is kind of the art style. So they were actually bringing her comics literally to life on the screen,
pretty much.
And it was so well done. And like that opening scene with her specifically felt really I lost it. The colors in that scene were very, very intentional, and not necessarily in a bad way. Like it wasn't like taking you out, but like they were conveying a lot of emotion just using colors, not even the artwork in the background, just the colors of her world. And like it was very obvious at this point, but like when she gives her father a hug and there's that like explosion of I think like red or pink or something between the two of them, just that like
they're showing the emotion visibly on screen. Like I think what makes that movie really, really like soar and become next level is that it takes advantage of the medium of animation. Like you could not have made that movie the same way in live action. It wouldn't have hit as much. It wouldn't have looked as good. It wouldn't have looked like that. You could not have done it in any other way. You couldn't have done it in 2D animation and made it look like that. Like, and the fact that it all exists simultaneously too. We'll get 2D animated characters with 3D, with all these other, with live action, which was pretty crazy to see. And it all works because they've been just like, they've just been committing to this. Like they've trained us to expect the unexpected with this sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that they did a really, really good job merging all the art styles. And just the way that they move too, right? Like Spider-Man is such an unearthly character. Like Superman live action makes sense. We know how to make a person look like he's flying, and he just kind of stands there and throws punches. Spider-Man moves so differently and so uniquely, especially like depending on the artist, I guess, but like you can have him kind of like in that crouching position, but none of the actors do that in the movies. Like most of them just kind of stand
like
up
that
when they're standing. They don't have that same kind of unearthly feeling, to the point where I was even thinking like, I don't know if I need another live action Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong, I'll watch them if they're going to keep making them. But like if they were just like, no, we're just going to keep making like Spider-Verse movies. Well, sorry, if we're going to keep making Sony animation Spider-Man movies, because they don't need to all be about the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I would be totally okay with that. Like the quality of this movie, or these movies, both of them, is so high. The voice acting is so high. The story writing is so good. I'm good. Like I don't think I need another Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield, or certainly not Tobey Maguire. So
controversial.
I know. I'm one of the few, but I could watch these movies every couple of years for life and be very happy with it. Like I can be okay with them getting a little smaller. Like they don't need to be like massive 800 Spider-Man movies every single time. In fact, the next one I would be pretty okay if it is like 10 Spider-Mans.
Yeah, I mean, they're still gonna have to have some, just because it will be the last Spider-Verse movie. They're gonna have to have like some big pops for it, I think, especially just from a marketing point of view. But like after that, I would be 100% happy with just an Earthbound Miles movie, or give us a Spider-Gwen like limited series, or give us a whatever, whenever. Give us Spider-Man 2099, like a solo thing, give us a Spider-Man Noir.
Even if they do another Spider, like obviously, never mind, not if they are going to do another Tom Holland Spider-Man
forever movie. Yes, they'll do that forever.
I really want that to be like a Spider-Man versus Kingpin, like a really, really low level. Like I don't want it to be like a massive, like let's bring all the Peters back or something. Like that just seems unnecessary at this point. But anyways, as far as this movie, okay, no, actually that's a good question. You were talking about for the next one. Is there a Spider-Man that we haven't seen you would like to see show up in Spider-Man 3?
So one I would like to see would be the old Peter from the end of Spider-Man Life Story.
Okay.
You know who I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to see him.
Doesn't. Spider-Man Life Story was a very limited run. It was like 6 episodes, I want to say, and each episode took Peter Parker through a different decade of his life. So in the comics, Peter Parker doesn't really age, right? Like he's kind of been 16 to 24 for 80 years. This was a way of looking like, what would his life be like in the 60s? What would it be like in the 70s? What would it be like in the 80s? But by the time you get to like the 2000s, he's 50 or 60 years old. So the one you're talking about, I want to say is like 2010s. He's fighting Morlun, and he's wearing armor because he needs to.
Exactly. He's probably, I don't know the age. He's 70, 80 years old at this point. He's been through it all. And yeah, he's got this armored suit with like a leather doublet. And I think having like an elder sort of statesman Peter would bring an interesting energy to it. I feel like he would probably be an ally to Miles, somebody to help against Miguel, because Peter at that point would probably not. He'd probably understand the idea of fighting for what you love, like disobeying the rules.
Which I didn't hit on it at first, but actually, like after we watched the movie, I was a little surprised you got this lobby, the like hundreds of Peter Parkers, and none of them are fighting up against that. Like, no, we can figure out a way to like, we're supposed to try and be the good guys. We're supposed to try and keep these people alive. Like, if we all work together, I'm sure we can figure out. Like, they all just kind of allowed it to happen, which seems weird. Like, that seems kind of anti-theoretical to who Peter Parker is.
So I was thinking about this afterwards, and I wonder how many of the people in the Spider Society are privy to what exactly was going on. Did they know exactly what was happening? Or were they told that Miles was a danger to the multiverse for some reason? Like, did they know that it was this cosmic coincidence that is very clearly fate and meant to be ultimately? Or were they just told to follow orders? And enough of them believed the seriousness of the stuff that Miguel had told them before that they just followed orders.
It's hard to say because all the characters we know knew what was going on because they were in the room while Miguel was telling them, right? So like Peter B. Parker, Gwen Stacy, the Spider-Woman, like they all know 100%. Now
they were also the inner circle though, right?
No, that's
they were Miguel's inner circle, or at least people who had a need to know. Like Gwen knew because of her like close relationship with Miles. She needed to know how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
Everybody else is in the inner circle. And I feel like Miguel is the type of guy to be very stingy with information and to manipulate and omit. I feel like that is how he runs the Spider Society, by like manipulating the various Spider-Men, telling them what they want to know and what they want to hear.
How familiar are you with Spider-Man 2099?
So as a design, very familiar. As a character, not very familiar at all. I've read like a handful of his comics, but I have a very clear memory of my uncle getting like issue 1 of Spider-Man 2099, like the nice hollow foil cover in the mail when I was over visiting him as a child. And that always stuck in my mind. He has a great design. But I don't think know very much about
his costume is more iconic than him as a character. Easily. I had the first couple of comics of his, and this is back in the 90s. I haven't read anything 2099 in a very long time. This is not him. Like this is very much a character made up for the movie who wears a Spider-Man 2099 costume.
Okay.
At least that's from what I'm remembering. If I'm wrong, by all means, let me know down in the comments. But this didn't feel like the Miguel that I knew. Not that I can't exactly pick a point where exactly it feels off. They made a comment about him being a vampire, and I think that was a joke, but he's not.
I have memories of, at least in a later run, him having some strange vampire powers. But
so he doesn't stick to walls per se. Like he's got talons, and he actually does damage to walls when he climbs.
Oh, that's interesting.
He's got talons in his feet and his hands, and that's kind of how. And he uses them offensively too. Like he uses them as weapons,
which I saw in the movie.
I think he does have fangs as well, but they're like spider fangs. They're not like vampire fangs.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're gonna.
I mean, it might just be like
fight somebody too in the movie,
right? I'm thinking though, if that's just like they call him a vampire as a joke, but he does have like spider venom powers or something, like
which he has to inject into himself. Right? Like
that is right. That is his deal, right? Yeah.
I'm wondering. I know we're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Is he an anomaly as well? Because he accuses Miles of being an anomaly, but he's also. There's something going on with Miguel. Like I have to assume that he's not just 100% on the up and up.
Yeah, there's probably something more to it than what he told Miles. There's probably some other little bit. Though I have no idea what it would be. I heard people online. I see Mad Dingo does confirm he does have fangs.
I agree that his character has fangs. I just don't think they're vampiric in nature. And again, if I am wrong, I apologize. He's not a favorite of mine. I just remember he's got a cool costume. It's basically all I really know.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But I heard some people online suggest so in the end of Into the Spider-Verse, Miguel is he's a bit more jovial, he's a bit skinnier. People are wondering if perhaps that is the Miguel that Across the Spider-Verse is Miguel, who he stole his life. Yeah, who he took out and stole that guy's life. And then so this Miguel is inherently a darker or more unstable or different Miguel than the traditional one that we would expect, and that was teased to us at the end. And that perhaps he will get darker and darker. I'm wondering if they're going to bring in Morlun in any fashion, since he was the main villain of the comic book Spider-Verse. I'm wondering if he's going to factor into this in the third one somehow. And potentially this could connect to Miguel. Maybe perhaps Morlun's promising Miguel something he wants, a happy life, to restore a family to him.
Morlun would definitely be a bit of a deeper cut than we've been getting in most of the Spider-Man movies. Like, they're generally pretty well-known characters. Where,
Yeah.
like, Morlun's been around for...
Well, I mean, how many people know the
years
Spot?
Or something? But, well, that's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he has been around for a while, and he's been in the cartoons, but he's nobody's, like... He's a D-list at best.
Which is what they allude to in this movie, too. They make fun of him for being, like, the villain of the week and who cares about you. And
which was very smart, actually, to play on the meta sort of textual.
It did a good job of getting the audience to kind of get behind that thought of, like, yeah, who cares about this guy? Like, he's not going to be anything important. You're just going to, like, Miles beats him and we move on, and then he just keeps coming back and getting stronger and stronger, and you're like, huh.
Yeah, exactly.
This movie actually does a pretty good job in a couple of different ways of getting the audience to participate kind of like Spider-Man or kind of like the main characters, you know what I mean? Like in the way that they're like, okay, this is just a character of the week. Like, nobody cares about this guy, who, like, move on. Like, it's just the Spot. He's a joke character. And, like, to the point where the audience is like, yeah, no, this guy's a joke. Ha ha ha. And then as the characters get more terrified of him, you kind of realize, like, oh, he actually is pretty powerful. And I can't take this idea as my own. I heard this from somebody else, but I really like it. I'm thinking about it more. At the end, and like, the spoiler alert is up, at the end when Miles goes to a different universe than Gwen, there are a lot of very subtle visual cues to that world that kind of, they're not enough to make you go, oh, we're in a totally different dimension, but it's almost a way of kind of getting your own personal spider sense up, where you're like, something's off. Like, the colors in the sky are just a little bit different. The colors apparently of the mom's eyes are different. Like,
that's interesting.
Green in one and brown in the other. When he actually puts on the jacket, we're always used to seeing him in, like, a dark green with a bit of a red, I think it is, hoodie underneath.
I think you're
right.
And
when he puts on that jacket, he doesn't think about it. He just grabs something off the ground because he doesn't want his mom to see him in the costume. It's Prowler colors. Like, it's purple and green.
Oh, shit.
It's not like punch you in the face, but I remember sitting in the theater and being like, oh, that's like Joker. I didn't think Prowler at the time, but I was like,
oh, that's interesting.
Weird how they got, like, Joker colors on, but it is like a Prowler outfit because that's who Miles is in this universe. And it's all those, like, subtle things where, like, something is off, but I couldn't quite place it. I think Jake did say, like, oh, they're in a different universe. I think I got there before they told us, but, like, milliseconds.
Jake,
you know what I mean?
Jake was pretty early on that. And yeah, he nailed that.
Yeah.
No, I didn't catch any of those, though. That's crazy. Like, I did obviously feel uneasy, but I thought it was just them using the colors as a color palette to make us feel, like, uneasy. I didn't quite connect it to that deeply to like, oh, he's wearing Prowler colors. And the whole universe seems to be Prowler colors now that I think about it. There's a lot of purple and green in those scenes.
Yeah. And, like you said, like, it made you feel uneasy, but you don't know why, which maybe that's kind of how the spider sense works, or the Peter Tingle, or however you want to use it.
Yes.
So I thought that was really cool. And the one thing, I might as well bring it up now, the one thing that I was saying earlier that I noticed upon watching Into the Spider-Verse that I completely missed, it's such a subtle little thing that maybe it's not even worth mentioning, but, like, when Prowler knocks Miles out, right? They tie him up to that punching bag.
Yes.
Exactly like Miles tied up Peter B. Parker. Like, it's the same punching bag. It's the same way they tied him up.
Yeah.
And it was just that interesting, like, oh, this is just what Miles does. Like, Miles just ties people with, like, bungee cords to punching bags. That's actually kind of fun. That's one thing that both universes do.
Did you notice, too, that they put some sort of insulating gloves on his arm to insulate from the venom shock? They had something. Yeah, I saw. I didn't notice it at first, but I saw, like, a clip on Twitter later. Somebody had posted, and so they know somehow.
So that just raises more questions for me then, because one of my very, very few complaints is you have no idea why Uncle Aaron and this world Miles or Prowler are doing this. Like, there's no motivation reveal, which maybe will be better when we get to the third one because they can have more time to, like,
I'm sure
what they're gonna do or fix it. But for right here, right now, is he gonna try and go to Miles's universe and see his dad? Does he have such a grudge against his dad that he's gonna allow him to die in another universe, like even a version of his dad that isn't his, just because he hates him so much? Like, what are we gonna get in the next movie? What is his reason for threatening Miles? And how does he know about the venom? If he does, in fact, put, like, oven mitts or whatever on him to get away from the venom blast, how does he know about that?
So I have no idea whatsoever.
It was kind of rhetorical, but I'm here to hear what you want to say.
I have a theory, though. I have a theory, and it's compounded by other theories, and it goes back to what I was saying about Morlun, who's like the vampire who preys on the web of destiny, the Spiderverse, as it were. I'm wondering if Morlun has gone to him and told him about what he's lost and of his birthright, and has been riling him up. Potentially. I mean, I have absolutely no reason to believe that, but I think there's something or somebody with knowledge that has Miles Prowler, you know? Like, I feel like somebody's feeding him with knowledge. Somebody's trying to use him as a weapon.
Ooh.
Perhaps it's just the Spot. It could just be the Spot. But
that could be interesting if in the next movie what we get is, because Spider-Gwen's putting the band back together, right? She's got Peter B. Parker,
and Noir,
Spider Noir, Ham, Spider Ham.
Yeah, Ham. I think Penny Parker and Hobie are there too.
Hobie, definitely.
Yeah.
What if the opposite of that is whoever the main villain is going to be, probably not Spot in this particular situation, is creating their own team of like Spider-Verse characters, including that version of the Prowler, maybe a one where Peter went evil, maybe Uncle Ben doesn't die, so Peter doesn't learn his lessons, so becomes a villain.
That would be interesting.
In the very old 1960s comics, I recently was going through some of them, Peter's not the hero that we think he is. Like, yes,
he's kind of a dick,
responsibility, but there's a couple of times where he's like, man, I'm broke, I should go rob a bank, I'm Spider-Man, I can go rob a bank, and you're just like, what? That's not who I thought you were. So like, if Ben doesn't die, what kind of a Peter Parker do we get? That might be something interesting to explore in a movie like this, where you can have so many different facets of Spider-Man, and that'd be a really interesting fight to have: Spider-Man versus Spider-Man, Miles versus Miles, Peter versus Peter. I didn't think that till just now, but I
like that idea. Like, in my head, I see Morlun as the one pulling the strings to do something, and then you get an evil Peter Parker. You get Prowler Miles. Perhaps 2099 is a plant from Morlun to like destabilize the Spider Society. And then you have, I don't know, there's a couple other evil Spider-Men. There was like a God, I forget his name, but there's like an evil serial killer Spider-Man who inherited the like the predatorial nature of a spider, so he like eats people. And like sucks out their insides the way a spider does.
You're not talking about like Doppelganger, are you? The one with like the 6 arms and the weird.
No, although that one is pretty cool. I'd like to see him in some capacity, but no, he's one of the newer ones from the actual Spider-Verse comic. He's just like they just briefly touch on him. It's like a 2-page little interlude, but
I want to say Doppelganger was in this movie in like a blink and you miss it scene with 1,000 other spiders. But I was like,
I guarantee
he is.
But, I mean, they have every other Spider-Man. I bet he is there. I bet the Spider-Man from the PS1 game's in there somewhere. They'll just be this little low res.
That I don't think I've seen that I would really like to is like the 90s animation Spider-Man. Like, I'd really like to see him at some point, just cause like get that voice actor back if he's still with us. Hopefully not even in the Spider-Man costume. I just want to see that striped purple and blue shirt again that he wore for 4 years of his life.
That would be fun. I like the little cameo from Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah, very small, but it was nice.
Yeah, it was nice to give him a line. He was like a featured Spider-Man.
There's apparently a Darkhold Spider-Man who went insane. Is that the one you're talking about? Who read the Darkhold and...
No, but that sounds cool. I didn't know about that.
Magical spiders?
That would be that'd be an interesting one for the anti-League of Spiders, the Spider Society of Villains, if you were.
The Sinister Spiders.
The Sinister Spiders. There we go. We got there.
Yeah. How did you like? I mean, way back when this movie was first announced, they called it Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. So I didn't think that this was going to end with a literal cliffhanger of to be continued, but I knew that there was a third one coming right around the corner.
Yeah.
In March 29th of 2024, apparently.
Crazy.
How did that hit you? Did you know that it was going to be continued? Were you disappointed that it was to be continued?
So I didn't know it was a to be continued, although I did know it was supposed to be a part 1 and that there was another one coming. So I knew it wasn't going to be a complete, like, there was going to be threads going into a sequel, and I was prepared in that way. As a rule, I generally don't like to be continued movies and part 1s. I feel like the point of a movie is to have a self-contained narrative, and then you can have a sequel that's another self-contained narrative, but like, movies are not TV, and that, like, you kind of like it never feels as satisfying if you walk out of a movie and have those threads dangling. However, I think this movie did the absolute best possible version of a part 1 movie.
I was just about to ask you, like, did you feel satisfied at the end of this movie? Because I agree with you. Usually those cliffhangers just leave you kind of like, I have to wait 2 more years to find out what happened to Frodo or whatever the heck.
Right.
Whereas this one, I think, and I've been thinking about why, I think it's because you get a complete story from Gwen.
Yes, there is an arc.
Her story arc is like, you know, her and her dad, she goes off to the Spider Society, meets up with Miles, is on the wrong side of that society, goes to the right side, decides to help Miles, makes up with her dad, and like, you get a complete story from her that I think helps make the movie feel more like a complete arc.
Yes.
And even though you're left in that place where, like, what is going to happen to Miles? Why is this happening to Miles? What's going on? How's he going to get home? You don't feel that, like, incompleteness. You don't feel enough. I mean, like, the girls behind us did. I think they said something along the lines of like, "Oh, this hurts my soul," or whatever.
She sure did, and I felt that too. It definitely hurt my soul as well. But like, ultimately, I think it's the right way to do it, because I don't think you can cut whatever finale they have. And oh, here's a cat. I don't think you can cut down whatever finale they have planned, and I don't think another hour and a half would have been tenable in that movie theater, just the way it was paced out.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't want this movie to be 3.5 hours long.
No, we don't need the Spider cut, the Snyder cut, the Spider cut.
Well, I mean, there will be a whole bloody affair at some point where I'm going to watch both these movies back to back.
That's
100% going to happen.
100%.
But yeah,
I agree. I agree with what you were saying about like Gwen, though. Like, they even start the movie essentially with Gwen, so she is our like main character for this chapter. She's the one who we're following on a journey, and even with Miles too. Like, it's not over, but we get enough with him and his journey. Like, he is in a changed position as a character at the end of this movie compared to how he was in the beginning. And even though he's still in the middle of something, he still even has a character arc himself.
Into the Spiderverse is very much Miles's movie.
Yes.
This one, they co-lead it. I think that's safe to say.
100%.
And I'm totally okay. This is easily my favorite version of both of those characters. Like, I'm reading the Ultimate Spider-Man, the Miles Morales omnibus right now.
Okay.
Which is the entirety of the Ultimate run, I believe, including there was a book called Spider-Man, where Spider-Man 616 goes to that universe, meets Miles, and actually meets, like, okay, this is a side tangent. He ends up meeting that universe's Gwen Stacy and Aunt May. Shit. And it's probably one of my favorite moments in comics ever. It's so incredibly good. I'll let you borrow the Spider-Man comic, because I've got the Spider-Man as a trade paperback, and then I've got the omnibus.
Yeah, because I've never read either of them. I've read a little bit of like the Peter Ultimate Spider-Man, but I've never even finished that.
You've never read? Oh, now that's my favorite Spider-Man, my favorite Peter Parker. His Ultimate Spider-Man. I absolutely love that run.
It's good.
You work at the comic store I buy these from, so you know, like, I've got the first 2 omnibuses of Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, and the third one's on pre-order.
Yeah, man.
I can't wait to have that whole series. Then I'm just gonna they're still in the shrink wrap, because I'm just waiting to have all of them so I can go through it again from beginning to end. Because I'm sure when they were coming out monthlies, I missed some here and there.
Oh, probably, yeah.
We went off on a tangent. Miles, I'm reading him in the comic books. I like him fine, but the movie Miles, I love. And even the video game Miles, like Spider-Man Miles Morales, I really enjoy that version of the character as well, but none of them hold a candle to movie Miles Morales, who I just find so much more interesting and relatable.
Credit definitely has to be given to the writers, but I think the voice actor too. I believe his name's Shameik Moore. I feel like so much of this Miles's personality is because of him, like his performance, his vocal performance. He gives so much personality with just like, well, just the way he speaks, you know, just the little intonations, you know, the little ticks. Like, he's a very likable Miles.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. In the comics, at least where I'm at in the comics, spoilers for the comics, they've been out for 10 years. Actually, do you want to? Maybe I shouldn't.
It's fine. It's fine. It's been out for 10 years.
Something happens in the comics, and he really rethinks who he is in being Spider-Man, and that's just the Netflix shows were really bad for this as well, where you always have the characters like debating if they want to be a superhero or fighting if they don't want to be a superhero, and like
the Punisher was especially.
Luke Cage is the one that did it for me, where he's just the entire time like, I'm not a superhero. It's like, you're bulletproof, man. Of course you're a superhero.
We're 2 seasons into your show. It's
just accept it. You don't have to wear yellow. I'm fine with that. But like, just be who you are. Anyways, so Miles is kind of going through that kind of a story arc where he's just like, no, I'm not going to do this. And you're just like, just shut up. Put the costume on. Go be Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm sure it sucks to be Spider-Man, but I hear you. It's hard to get behind those kinds of storylines because you know they're gonna put the costume on in the end anyway. Like it's just treading water essentially.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love this version of Miles. I am hoping that they do nail it on the third one, because this will probably be my favorite trilogy of all time if they nail the third one, because the first two are damn near 10s for me.
Yeah, that first one is easily my favorite Spider-Man movie. I need to like sit with this one a while. I don't want to be rash, but I'm sure it's gonna wind up there as well. And if the third one is anywhere close to these two, those are my 1, 2, and 3 in terms of Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, like the first one's top 10 movies for me, not even Spider-Man movies. Like, I rewatched it with
good.
A couple of days ago, and we were still laughing through it. We've seen it so many times. Yeah. There's still parts of it that just make me chuckle. It's just so incredibly well done. The almost father-son relationship between Miles and Peter. Sorry, that's another thing. In the comics, I can't stand Miles' dad. He's such imp. Like, I just don't like his character at all. He's not a police officer. He's not interesting. Like the Jefferson in the movies is such a better character, way more fleshed out, far more interesting. Like, I actually care if he's going to die in the next movie or not, because I really like their relationship. I really like him as a character. If you were to tell me that his dad dies in the comic books, I would not mind at all. Almost relish it.
That's funny. It's always interesting when an adaptation winds up doing it better than the source material. That very rarely happens.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on, and it's not really a big talking point, it's just kind of I didn't know this and I found this interesting. When they're traveling to, at one point in the movie, they go to a Lego universe.
Yes.
And you have Lego Spider-Man. I didn't know this at the time. I super want to watch the movie again and check this out. Apparently that entire scene, other than the voice work, was done by a 14-year-old kid who has his own YouTube channel where he makes all these like Lego videos. He made a complete recreation of the Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse trailer using just Legos. He's doing it entirely himself. The channel is Lego Me. It might be the Lego Me, the OG. I couldn't quite tell. There's 2 different versions. But go check it out. It's really, really cool. And knowing that this is all done by a 14-year-old in his apartment, like, from what I heard, secondhand, of course, obviously, the studio reached out to him, and his parents were just like, yeah, no, absolutely, as long as he gets his homework done. So, like, the studios reach out, like, hey, how you doing? Like, what's your math homework like? He's like, oh, I'm almost done. I'll work on the video after that. And it's just like, that's so cool. It's such a little scene, but, like, I'm really glad they reached out to him and, like, put him in part of the movie for that.
Yeah, it's such a good opportunity for that kid. And, like, that's how you know, that's part of how you know this movie was made by real people that really love what they're doing, really love the source material, because that's the spirit of Spider-Man right there, you know? Like, reaching out to somebody, helping them out.
Yeah,
And
no,
it's fantastic too. Like the actual video that I've seen that Lego trailer, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
like,
I watched it afterwards. I'm like,
legitimately.
this is insane. Like, this is incredibly well done for anybody, let alone one person.
Yeah. And even the small scene, like it's nothing too crazy, but it looks really good. I assumed it was just done by like the people who made the Lego movie. I assumed it was just done in that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, awesome to see.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to touch on? We're at 1:15 right now. Are we good to wrap on episode 1?
One thing I wanted to touch on before we go was Donald Glover.
Oh my God, yes. Thank you.
I almost forgot about that myself. Donald Glover is in this movie as the Prowler from the MCU, and it was crazy. You could feel the like surprise from the whole theater, and just like trying to compute, like, what the fuck? What? How? Sorry. But it's like it was crazy.
That was probably the only time that I've been in a movie theater where not the entire, but like the audience cheered.
Yeah.
Like there were audible clapping and like cheer. There wasn't just like laughter or surprise. It was like people were excited for this. People got it right away. It was amazing. And part of that is like, I think people just love Donald Glover. But also like exactly where I was going with this, Matt Dingo, the reason Miles exists is because, wait, what? Miles exists acting with Miles exists. Yes, the reason Miles exists. Back in, I think, 2010 or so, Donald Glover was on Community. And season 2 or 3 opens up with him in pajamas, like Spider-Man pajamas. And this started a huge thing on the internet, like Donald Glover for Spider-Man. And it's right around the time that Amazing Spider-Man is getting cast. So we didn't know that Andrew Garfield was going to be the new Spider-Man. So there was a possibility, and people were fighting for this hard. And then obviously it didn't happen. Andrew Garfield got the role. And Brian Michael Bendis, who was writing Ultimate Spider-Man at the time, was like, well, what would that look like? And actually created Miles because of Donald Glover. And it was so cool to see that come full circle. And I mean, obviously in Spider-Man Homecoming, we get to see Donald Glover for like 2 seconds when Spider-Man thwips his hand to the door with the ice cream for this car. Wow, that was a bad sentence. But seeing him go from that, so you get to see him live action. He does mention he's got a nephew that lives in the area. Yeah. To actually being the Prowler in a live action
costume.
It was such an incredibly smart callback, and it probably took an hour out of his life. You know what I mean? Like it was probably super easy to do, and it was just so good to see.
I bet you he leapt at that too. Like, another thing, he got to voice Miles very briefly. Really? He was the first guy to ever voice Miles in I want to say it was the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show.
Okay.
It's the one after Spectacular. But yeah, there was a brief Spiderverse like crossover, and he got to be Miles in that, which was pretty awesome.
I will definitely look that up on YouTube when we're done here. That would be very cool.
Pretty good.
It'll be hard to hear Miles be anybody other than this Into the Spider-Verse version. Yeah. I'm gonna butcher the name if I try it, so I'm just gonna leave that one alone. But yeah, that was probably one of my favorite cameos, not only in the movie but in like a movie. Like that was such a, I don't even call it an Easter egg because that seems to be.
It was pretty well featured, to be an Easter egg.
Yeah, like it was front and center, but it was so smart, so clever. Way to bring him in. Do you think we're ever going to see him be a Prowler for real? Like, we've got 3 more Tom Holland movies. Do you think we're going to see Miles? Do you think we're going to see the Prowler?
So, honestly, I don't, and I think that's why Marvel let them do that for this movie. I think
Marvel can't let them do anything.
Well,
Sony owns Prowler. Sony owns Spider-Man.
That's true. Although it is a complicated. They lease Prowler, but I guess you're right. They probably do have final say. Although I think Marvel gets final control on creative stuff. I believe that was part of the deal. It's just Sony gets money.
I think Sony straight up owns Spider-Man as long as they make a Spider-Man related product every couple of years. It was pretty much what the X-Men had with Fox, and then Disney just bought Fox. They're like, nah, screw it, we want our X-Men back.
I'm trying to remember how, because I don't know if it's changed, because I know the contract has been re-upped a couple times, but that whole original Civil War like contract thing, I believe the deal was that like Marvel got creative control of at least the Marvel MCU movies, which I think would extend to the characters introduced in those movies too. And Sony gets the money from it. They get the merchandising rights. They get the distribution rights.
I'm pretty sure. I think you, if I understand, you might have that one a little bit backwards. I think Sony technically owns Spider-Man and any Spider-Man related character as far as movies and stuff like that goes, like multimedia, and they're lending them to the MCU. And I think that's why after after No Way Home, there was that like debacle where they had to redo contracts and whatnot because Marvel obviously wanted to keep him. And I think they only signed him for 3 movies. They're like, well, no, we want him in Endgame. We want him in Infinity War. Like, this is going to go over the 3-movie deal that we had, but we'll pay you ever.
I think because Donald Glover was introduced in one of these Marvel movies, because Marvel does get final say over Spider-Man Homecoming and No Way Home. Yeah. No Way Home, I think, was a bit more of a... Like, Sony had a bit more control because it was such a multiverse movie, but... Generally, Marvel has control. I think if
Marvel had full control, we wouldn't have gotten Morbius.
Well, that's
that was
the thing.
A Sony movie.
But Morbius didn't appear in Spider-Man Homecoming first. That's the difference. That's the distinction. Because Donald Glover as Aaron Davis appeared in an MCU movie first. I believe they would at least have to reach out. I don't think Marvel could block them. But I think... I just get the sense that Marvel's not going to use him, bottom line. Whether Marvel did agree or not.
We're arguing, but I think you're right. I think we've seen what we're going to see of Miles Davis's Prowler. Unless, Sony could make their own Prowler.
Yes.
Right? Like, they're making Craven, they're making...
but that's one that would make sense, so they're probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
That's one that we might actually want to see.
Oh man, I would watch the hell out of that if that was Donald Glover doing it.
God, and then that could
you honestly wouldn't even have to have Miles. Like I'd watch him just in his own movie, or like introduce Miles, but not as Spider-Man, just as like
as little baby Miles, like
7.
Yeah, exactly. I also thought I saw a behind-the-scenes picture of the Prowler costume, like in proper lighting and stuff.
Okay.
And it looks really cool. Like, I would definitely seek out that picture to anybody listening.
I'm sure it's going to be on the Blu-ray special features.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to watch all of.
Looks very cool. It looks a little homemade, but it looks homemade with style. Like, as if it actually was Aaron Davis making it, but he's like, he knows what he's doing. Okay. And he wants to look cool. Still got, like... Definitely, like the Prowler symbol itself looks like it's spray painted, and it's got some like nice little drips, like aesthetically placed and stuff. It just
which is a cool little details. Back to Miles' costume in Into the Spider-Verse.
Exactly what I thought. What I thought.
Very cool.
I also thought, while we're talking about the live action segments, I thought it was really cool that we got confirmation that like all the Spider-Man stuff does exist within the same Spider-Verse. Like we got images of Tobey Maguire's Uncle Ben dying when talking about canon events. We got all the canon events that Andrew Garfield went through.
Yeah.
Very, very
nothing from Tom Holland that I saw.
Which I think ties back to the Marvel deal. I think Marvel has ultimate say on when they use Tom Holland as Spider-Man, even though Sony does own the rights to Spider-Man in film. I think they would have to use Andrew Garfield, which is why he was more prominently displayed, or a new Spider-Man. They could always do that.
I'm just wondering if they're saving that for Beyond.
That would be cool.
That'll be a large pop with a younger audience who only really knows Tom Holland.
See, that would be cool. Yeah. I would love to see it. And that is one of the last big Spider-Man that hasn't been referenced at all. Well, I guess that's a lie. He was referenced in this one. The little nerd.
Oh, the magician.
Who ruined the thing with Doctor Strange. Yeah.
Yeah, it's... I would be surprised if Sony wanted him in this movie. I would be shocked if Marvel said no, considering Sony could be like, well, screw it then. You don't get Spider-Man in the future. Like, Sony holds a lot of cards in this argument. I think if they wanted him, they could have had him. My guess is they didn't try.
I think, it would just be a deal that would have to be done. I don't think either party would really have a problem with it, but I do think there would have to be some level of deal to be made. Money would change hands, or something would have to happen. There would have to be paper signed.
Matt Dingo makes a good point that you're kind of right. Like, because it is a Marvel film, Sony would have had to have paid Marvel or Disney to use that footage.
Yes, especially if it was explicit footage too, like not shooting new stuff, but if they wanted to use.
Like, I'm sure they could film new stuff with Tom Holland and be fine, but because that's a good point, because it was actually a Disney property, they would have to get the rights from them and probably pay some.
Which is just extra lawyerly stuff, which I'm sure they are probably like, maybe they are doing it, but it just took a little too long, and then it'll be in the third one.
Well, and honestly, did we need it?
No,
like, there's already so much that they're like, we don't. Why pay somebody all this money when we can already throw in, Donald Glover, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and like people are going to lose their minds, right? Like,
exactly,
that was cool enough. And I'm fairly confident we'll see something Tom Holland related in.
Oh, I'm sure before the trilogy is done.
Now, here's a question for you that's on topic, but just a little out there. All Hollywood right now is going through a writer's strike.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this movie is finished, or do you think the writer's strike could have a negative impact on it? It's less than a year out, so it's probably well on its way. But
from what I understand, animation has different guilds than live action. So animation writers have their own guilds. I believe it's TAG, T-A-G, unless that's just the television one.
I wouldn't be able to give you the name, but I was watching a Kevin Smith, Mark Bernardin podcast, and they were talking about that.
Yeah, so
some comic right now, and it didn't cross picket lines. So
it won't be affected by the writer's strike. Unfortunately, animation writers will be paid peanuts for it, but at least we'll get it on time.
Yeah.
So from a consumer standpoint, it won't be affected by it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with the writer's strike, if they do come to a good resolution to that, then that will affect other guilds and writing guilds and stuff like that. So
is it a rising tide?
Exactly, the rising tide
raises all boats or something like that.
Yeah, a high tide raises all
boats.
Tide.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will work out in the best for everyone down the road.
I did just see that the Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, they're going on strike in solidarity with the writers, so that's a huge thing. The Directors Guild, they cut a deal real early. They kind of left them by the wayside, but the actors going on strike's a huge thing. And
you have a lot of writers a lot of actors who do get writing credits.
Yes, that's
one of the biggest problems with Deadpool 3 is we're way off the rails now. Because Ryan Reynolds is technically a writer because he ad-libbed so much of the script.
Yeah, it counts.
They are continuing forward with filming, but he's not allowed to ad-lib a single thing. And I'm terrified for what that means for Deadpool 3. I wish they would call it and just be like, nope, we're going to hold off. And if it takes 6 months, it takes 6 months. But like,
do you remember?
Not make a bad movie. You got Logan, you've got Deadpool in the same movie. Don't mess this up.
Right? It's such a big thing. I'm so worried. Like, do you remember some of the movies from the last writer's strike?
I remember 2008 shows from the last writers' strike.
Lost, Heroes. Both got eviscerated. Two big movies that I remember very vividly being the first movies I actively hated in a theater were X-Men Origins. Wolverine was ruined by the writer's strike, and
which also has Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds in it. In those same roles, so let's do it again.
Let's do it again, Alpha and Omega. Let's end this partnership off on a down note. And then Quantum of Solace was the other big one, James Bond. And that might have been the only movie I've ever fallen asleep to in a theater. I hate that movie. It's so boring. So I'm not looking forward to Deadpool 3 being made during a writer's strike. It's not looking good.
Yeah. I'm not as big of a James Bond fan as you and Mike are, so it was not unusual for me to fall asleep during a James Bond movie when I was watching that one.
That's fair.
But that being said, Quantum of Solace was the one you were mentioning, right?
Yeah, Quantum. Yeah,
that's easily my least favorite of the
Craig ones.
The Craig ones, Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Movies.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. And you can tell once you know. So they didn't even have a script. They were going off of an outline that was written by a producer. So imagine trying to make a James Bond movie with no script, just ad-libbing it, scene by scene. Like,
I mean, okay, we're so far off the rails, we might as well just keep going. But I was just listening to a podcast. Apparently, do you ever watch the Studio Ghibli movies?
No, actually, I never have.
Apparently, that's kind of how they make them. Like, Miyazaki just draws whatever he wants to draw, and then they figure out a way to make it into something afterwards, and then they make a script off of what he's drawn.
Wow.
Which is like mind-boggling that ever comes to fruition, let alone has come to fruition multiple times. Like,
yeah, to do that
I highly recommend Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away. Like, there's a bunch of them that are phenomenal. But like now I kind of want to watch them again, just like, how did he do this?
Yeah, that's wild, because that is so backwards compared to what you're supposed to do. I had no idea. Yeah. Especially they seem like very intricate stories too, like from what I've heard of them. Like,
it is all coming from one person's perspective, so maybe he does have something written in his head as he's doing it. But yeah, his last movie is coming out and they're doing zero press. Yeah, I heard about that. They're not going to have any trailers or anything. You're not going to know anything about it until it comes out. I forget what the title of the movie is. I just read it yesterday, I think. But
for Ghibli, for Miyazaki?
Yeah.
Okay. But that's crazy.
It's gonna work probably, because I mean, we're gonna get people talking about the fact that
people are gonna see it.
And he's got such a reputation behind him and his studio that it's gonna come out and people will watch it almost regardless, just based off his name.
100%.
He's like a Nolan of his own genre.
Exactly.
Anyways, let's go back to Spider-Man. Is there anything else you any other thoughts you had or questions or?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. The live action stuff was what really tickled me. That's what I really wanted to talk about there.
Which is ironic, because I started this by saying I'm pretty okay with not doing any more live action. But I agree, like, actually seeing Donald Glover did kind of
the Roger Rabbit-ness of it all was really cool.
Yeah. And it works better in this way than I think it will in that. Like, I don't want to see animated Miles show up in the next MCU movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like seeing Donald Glover in this is cool. Seeing Miles in that would be very weird.
Be weird. I mean, if it was pulled off well, I could get behind it, but no. I'd rather somebody...
I'd rather not.
I'd rather see like Andrew Garfield or Toby show up and just be the one human in a sea of like crazy live action. I want to see Hobie stand next to Andrew Garfield and just kind of see his reaction.
Honestly, I bet Andrew Garfield would do it in a second.
Oh, I bet.
Like Toby, you'd have to pay a lot of money, and even Tom Holland, I don't know, but like, Andrew Garfield has a love for this character. I bet you wouldn't even have to pay him very much. Just like, hey,
probably not.
Come on out and be in this movie. Okay.
I bet you he would. Just like, and his movies are getting a kind of renaissance of love too. So
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say now because everybody's just like, oh, of course not. I've always loved his movies. Like, I really Amazing Spider-Man 1, more so than 2, obviously, holds a very high position in my heart. Like, if we were going to do our ranking of the movies, it'd be very high up.
Yeah, that one has climbed higher and higher as the years have gone on for me too. And even 2, like as sloppy as it is, has a lot to love. The whole Gwen Peter romance is really, really well done. Some of the visuals are amazing. Some of the action is like some really great Spider-Man action.
I would honestly watch a Tobey Maguire, no, that's the wrong person, Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone romantic comedy, like no spider powers whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, the chemistry is off the charts.
That was easily the best part of that second movie, yeah.
Yeah. And like...
and the first one.
To go off for a second, the second one in theaters, I remember being really disappointed with. I watched it again for the first time, so I've only seen it twice.
Okay.
And liking it a lot more the second time. Maybe because my expectation was just lower.
It's okay for sure.
It's got parts. It's got some really awful.
It's uneven.
Good parts. Yes, it is very uneven. But I have to say, spoilers for an 8-year-old movie. The Gwen Stacy death scene.
Ooh.
I have heard people say that they botched it and it wasn't well done. I think that was incredibly well done.
It
to
was,
the point where in the theater, I was so conflicted with myself because one part of me is like, if they don't kill her, I'm going to be really upset because she is supposed to die.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I love her character so much. I love their characters together that I really don't want her to die. You know what I mean? Like, Gwen Stacy died like 20 years before I was born. Like, I've never known a world where she's alive. But this one, it was just like, no, like, let's just, like, give me one more movie where we can live through this and, like, don't take this away from me. And at the same time, it's like, no, she has to die. Like, that is such an integral part of his character.
It's a canon event, right?
To die. Exactly. Way to bring it back. So I absolutely love that.
It was. And I know
that movie, if nothing else.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, they really did such a good job. I don't think those movies would have worked at all if the chemistry wasn't there between them. And the fact that it was, like, it makes that moment hit so much that even when they bring it back all these years later in No Way Home, it still hits and it still hurts. And you can see, like the effect it had on this character, like, is it's very believable.
Yeah. No, yeah. All right, so if we're going to wrap this up, let's, just out of curiosity, I think we kind of touched on this already. If you had to give, and I'm putting you on the spot on this one, so I apologize. If you had to give a score out of 10 to Across the Spiderverse, how close to 10 are you giving it?
I mean, easily a 9. I would probably give it a 9.5 or a 10 if it wasn't a to be continued. But I feel like I got to stick to my guns and ding it a little bit for that. But yeah, it's top tier Spider-Man.
I would agree. I think, I don't even know if the to be continued knocks it out of. It's hard to give a movie a 10 that I've seen once.
Yeah, that's also,
Like, so I feel like I kind of have to agree with you with like a 9.5 in the sense that, like, it was everything I wanted it to be. My expectations were through the roof, and it somehow managed to not only meet them, but completely exceed them. I'm seeing it again on Sunday with my family and my nephew, and I cannot wait. I literally cannot wait. Like, I honestly tried to talk them into skipping school on Monday because I had yesterday off work.
Oh, that's funny.
Not that I had to convince the kids. I had to convince my wife, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, it wouldn't have taken that much, I think.
So I have to see this again. I have to kind of let it sit for a little bit. Into the Spider-Verse is a 10 for me. That movie is absolutely perfect. It is infinitely rewatchable, as I have been putting to the test.
There's no fat on it at all. It's perfectly paced.
I can't think of anything that I would change. Like, literally nothing. Yeah. And right now, I can't think of anything I would change with this movie. But I can't quite give it a 10 just because it's so fresh in my mind. I've seen it one time.
You got to be careful about recency bias with stuff like this.
Well, and especially like episode 1, 10 out of 10. Like, we're doing this seriously.
Exactly.
But that being said, I want to thank everybody who's been hanging out with us. I want to thank Matt Dingo for being part of the conversation as much as you are. That's awesome. And if anybody is watching this on the rewatch, thank you so much. Feel free to, I'm going to say like and subscribe, but realistically, if you're on YouTube, this is the wrong channel. I completely forgot. I made a new channel for movies and stuff like that, and just completely forgot that YouTube has a 24-hour wait time from when you want to go live to when you can for the first time. So when I went to click like upload, it wouldn't let us. So if you're watching this right now, this is actually going to be my gaming channel. I will post a link up in this description that is going to be my actual movie-based channel. If you enjoyed this and want to join that community, I would love to have you. I'll also throw a link up to the Discord in the bottom so you can actually be part of the conversation even when we're not live. But the plan right now is for me to be live every Tuesday at roughly this time, like 8:30 on. And Adam, Jesse, Jake, anybody who's willing to join me is willing to jump in on that conversation. We'll go over whatever we want to for the week. But that's it. This has been the Mongoolie Show, or the Mongoolies Movie Show. Adam, thank you so much for hanging out and having your opinions. It was a great talking to you.
Pleasure to be here, and hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully next Tuesday.
Hopefully.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you next time.